guys, so today what we're going to do is I'm going to do my September book review. So these are all the books that I read September except for one, and I'll explain that when we get it. So I just ranked these in order from my least favorite to my favorite, so let's just get into it. Alright, so this is one of the books I read. It's called The Wedding Quilt, and it's by Jennifer Shavaruni. I'm sorry if I'm saying that last wrong. So basically what this is the story of the Elm Creek Quilt Center. And so basically it's this woman who started a quilting retreat and specifically is talking about a wedding quilt. So it goes through the story of her daughter, and then she flashes back to some moments with friends, and it's all tied around the making, giving, receiving of wedding quilts. This is a very light-hearted book. It's not intense, and if it's a fairly quick read. The reason why it's my least favorite is actually because there's a lot of flashbacks, or there are a lot of different stories, different characters, and they are all connected by the wedding quilt. But the problem is because there were just so many stories, and the characters honestly did not always seem that important. It was really hard to really connect, really dig in, really get into really intense depth of character. This wasn't a bad book by any means, but it's not something that I will be running out and telling my mom to go pick up and read this book. So that's that. Alright, the next book is called The Program by Suzanne Young. So this is, well, you guys could see I got it from the library. They say it's for older teens, and I'm a little bit surprised, or maybe I'm a prude, because this is a dark book, like really dark. So the premise of this book is that there has been a disease in teens regarding suicide. So suicide has become an epidemic, and that they believe that it is a catching disease. And so what happens is if someone is marked as showing signs for being suicidal, they are taken away into the program, and basically they get their memory erased. And so this is basically following the story of a young girl who is fighting against that system. And it's like I said, it is a dark book. So if this is a sensitive subject to you, or if you are not really into more heavier topics, don't read this book. On the positive side though, it's a page turner. Like, I definitely think I read this book. I started it on a Friday night and I finished it on a Saturday afternoon. The writing is very gripping, very suspenseful, and honestly, if you're looking for a summer beach read, even though I say summer beach read meaning it's easy to get into and you don't have to work that hard. It's not a hard book to read. I would recommend this, but just know yourself. Basically know yourself for this one. Alright, the next book, actually, it is on my phone because it is an Audible book. I'm not sponsored by Audible. There's no link or anything like that. But, oops. This is Audible. That's what I just said. This was actually my first time. So my husband had an account before we were married, and so this is one of the books he's downloaded. I signed into his account. So this book is called The Millionaire Next Door, and it's by two PhD people, Thomas J. Stanley and William D. Danko. This is a nonfiction book, and this was fascinating. So what it is it's these two PhD professors, students, doctors, whatever you want to call, and they were hired by very well-off companies to do studies for companies to really understand the mindset of the wealthy, for them to be able to know how they live their lives, how they got there, everything that they can about millionaires, in order to be able to market to them better, in order for them to be able to know how to sell things. Because why not go for the people that make the most money, right? So this book, it's very interesting, but it almost sounds like a textbook. So I was reading it, and there's not a lot of dynamic in when you're listening to it. It's pretty monotone for this one, but the information is killer. It's really interesting to me, because one of the things that I'm working towards, it not necessarily to be a millionaire. I don't know if I care so much about that number or whatever, but I really am looking towards one day being able to make enough money to be able to live comfortably, to have a house. That's one of my goals in life. And so it was really interesting. There are 2 points that were the most interesting that I learned. Once again, this is a book that has a lot of case study, a lot of statistics. It's very much almost like taking a class when you are listening to this book. It felt like I was going back to school learning about the lives of millionaires. So the first thing is that if you want to have what they call accumulated wealth, which means you're fine. You might not be the highest income earner, but you have wealth that's accumulated, they are frugal, which was really interesting to me. The people who have sustained wealth, they are not the flashy people. They are not the people that are necessarily driving the crazy cars, taking the crazy vacations. They are living very frugally. So one interesting story that they had to show that point is when they were doing some of their case studies, they invited a bunch of millionaires to come take a survey, interview them, stuff like that. And what happened is that they set out a nice fancy meal, or fancy buffet. So they had like caviar, all the pate, all the things that you think were really fancy, and they really didn't eat a lot of it, But then at a different time, they had another buffet filled with really simple things like sandwiches and just regular everyday food, and the millionaires were really eating that, and they kind of figured out why. And it's because the millionaires are the people who have accumulated wealth. Once they start increasing their wealth or their income that they're making, they stay frugal because it's who they are in their core. They don't necessarily value the high things in life because they're the high things in life. What they value is they like what they like. And if what they like is a roast beef sandwich or turkey sandwich or whatever, that's what they like. They don't feel necessarily the need to impress people by having a higher standard of living. And by keeping that integrity characteristic, whatever you want to call it, they are able to grow their wealth so it is sustainable. So the frugality is something that really I learned, and I think it's a really important characteristic. Like, that's going to stick with me, because in our Instagram life that we're all living now, it's very easy to see, like, to scroll through, see all the photos of, like, oh my gosh, this person went to Disneyland Paris, and now they're going to Tokyo Disneyland, now they're going to Aulani. I want to do all that stuff, and yeah, I want to do all those things, right? But it's really nice to also think about, yes, but that's not all there is. Like, there are people who are doing well who maybe will spread things out, or who just will live a little bit more simply. So I really like that. And another thing that I really felt like I was able to learn is through this book is, just because you have a high income, you have a job that makes a lot of money, does not mean that you are good with your money. And the opposite, just because you have a normal job does not mean that you are doing bad things with your money. Basically, it's what you do with the money you have. for this one because they were saying that a lot of the sustained wealthy people, or the people that have savings or investments to be able to last for a long time if something happens, they are a lot of small business owners. Like they were talking about people who own like a dry cleaning store or like a janitorial service. Those small business owners, they don't do a lot of flashy things with their money, but they're really smart with their investments and with their savings. And so this really helped me to kind of recheck myself and to recheck the things that I prioritize, or even possibly recheck what I think about sometimes getting jealous about that wonderful so-called Instagram life. And so this book I put kind of in the middle of the pack because even though I think it could teach a lot of valuable lessons, it is like you're going to school with a teacher that has a monotone voice. That's just how it is. But if this topic is something that interests you, I would really recommend putting into the time to do it. Alright, so this is the next book that I read, and it is called Bloodline by Claudia Gray. Actually, I'm going to do, so this is my second favorite, and this is my first favorite. So I'm going to kind of talk about these two books together because this is by the same author. So Lost Stars, this is a book that I read over the summer, so not in September. I think I read it in maybe August or July or something, and I fell in love. This was my first Star Wars book, and the reason why I wanted to get involved in reading the Star Wars book is because I'm just kind of excited about Star Wars Land coming to Disneyland. I'm not ready to make a costume, make custom fabric, do anything. Like, I'm like, okay, cool, something new, but I'm not a die-hard fan, but I want to be. Like, I want to be a die-hard fan. And so the movies are good. Like, I like them, but I just needed more to really become. So I was like, okay, I want to become one of these crazy fans. I need more content. So I decided to pick up this book, and oh my gosh, I love this book. So this is a book, Claudia Gray, I think she's a great writer, Lost Stars. None of the main characters in the movies are in this book. So this is basically talking about two kids who are on a planet, and then they become stormtroopers, and through the events of the rebellion, Death Star or whatever, they choose different paths. So one person stays with the path of the stormtrooper, the other goes with the Rebel Alliance. But they're great friends, and they love each other and all those things. And so this book was incredible. What I really, really like is I think it added a lot of depth to the dark side for this one, because in The Force Awakens we kind of see, oh, stormtroopers aren't just robots. Like, I didn't even know if there were humans in there. So we learned already that stormtroopers are real people. They have personalities in them, and this just shows the main thing. The reason why I like this book is because this book shows the reason why some stormtroopers might have stayed with the status quo. And so I just think it just adds that element to those stories that they really, really need. At least for me, they needed to just add that extra depth. And so if you are a Star Wars fan, for sure read this. It's a quick read, it's a great read, I love it. If you're not a Star Wars fan, but you want to be one, you want to be like one of those people standing in line for days when Galaxy's Edge opened, I would recommend join me on my quest in the books, Star Wars books, because way better than I expected. Alright, so Claudia Gray, read her over the summer. So I saw that she had another Star Wars book. This one is called Bloodline, and what this is this is kind of, the main character of this is Princess Leia. and it's showing her basically in between movies number 6 and 7. Because what I really liked about this book is it kind of showed the fall on why 7 needed to happen. Because at the end of the original trilogy, 4, 5, 6, we end with a victory, right? Yay, good things happens. The rebels win, all these things, and then all of a sudden 7 is like, oh, terrible things happen. We need a new thing going on, and it's like, the last movie we won, how did it get to being terrible again? And so this does have a lot of political elements in it. But what I really appreciated is they gave a lot of that backstory of episode 7, The Force Awakens. So it makes a little bit more sense. It gives Princess Leia another dimension. It really shows her, basically, her torn between her sense of political duty and then her being torn between family duty and stuff. And so this is a really good book. Lost Stars I think is better, but I really enjoyed this one too. Alright, so that's all I read for the month of September. And I guess I snuck one extra one in. So please let me know if you have any book suggestions. Reading is probably tied with sewing for my favorite passion, other than going to Disneyland. That's probably first. So if you have book suggestions, I'd love to hear it, and I'm really hoping, if you've read any of these books, please let me know, because if you disagree with me, or if you agree with me, I could talk about books all day. So thanks for listening. Bye.